Last year and the beginning of this year was a terrible situation, a global pandemic, and that had an enormous amount of effect basically on the fastest growing real estate sector, the travel sector in the world. So if you look at the slide that is in front of you now, you'll see that 73% fewer overnight trips in 2020. It was misery just about everywhere. Asia was hit hardest, and then Europe and Middle East, everything followed. Terrifying numbers. We all know them. We've seen them on all slide decks that you've seen in the last year. But it is a backdrop. This one is a more important one actually to look at for today. The most vulnerable markets offer the most interesting opportunities for investors at the moment. So where we stand now, coming out of the pandemic, more countries are going from amber into green. Travel will be increasing, and obviously you will see that travel by car will go quicker than travel by plane, and anything that is within reach within the Europe zone, mostly the Mediterranean areas, will pick up first, and that's where the opportunities lie as well. This slide shows that very clearly. And it's also the impact basically on the economy of some of these countries portrayed in front of you is scary. So tourism is a main economic impact for the areas around the Mediterranean area. So there also logically lie the most opportunities, and recovery we see coming there first. So one of the other things that caught our eye is the opportunistic nature of private equity. Obviously, there is not a lack of funds in the world at the moment. There's an enormous amount of cash available. Cash is relatively cheap. Interest rates are low. And that means that there's, alongside the traditional investors, there's a lot more new investors that have come to the stage as well. There's a few names here. Some of the players that weren't that active 2-3 years ago, all of a sudden seem to be becoming more and more active. That's a trend that we see happening. But yes, there is an enormous appetite. And then the question is that we'll see in the next slide: are there opportunities? Are there distressed assets? And is it because of the pandemic that the bargains are out there in the market? And the answer really is no. There aren't really any bargains that we see. Yes, there's a few. I mean, the ones that have a lot of lease contracts on their balance sheet usually are the ones that are suffering most. If you have a lot of staff burden, you have a bit of an issue. But if you own the real estate and you have government support, it really seems to be pretty much okay. And from what we are seeing across the territory in the EMEA region, is that there isn't really a big price drop versus the 2019 situation, mostly because of the enormous amount of appetite from investors in the market, and that keeps the prices relatively high. Sorry. Moving to another slide here. Will the industry be affected for several more years? Yes and no. There's a bit of a discussion that I'm sure we're going to have in the panel later on. How fast is recovery going to be there? We've had a few examples. We've had 9/11. We've had the financial crisis, where we saw significant impact on the travel industry. But gradually and quite quickly, actually, the market rebounds because the appetite for travel is enormously high. Today, we see also that there's a lot of people that have saved a lot of money. There's a lot of money in pockets of people that burns, and people are sick and tired of being sitting at home, and they all want to go out. So logically, you go and have a holiday in your own country first, or you go across the border a little bit more south if you're in the northern countries, and find some sunshine. And when it seems to be safe and all the mouth caps are gone, then logically that kind of tourism will come first. And then the business tourism, that's another discussion we can have, how fast that goes. The first, we had a discussion a couple of days ago on that already, that Teams, you never know who's on the screen and who's watching. So how long that's going to take, we never know. So obviously, some business travel will come back. It will be different. I'm sure we're going to have a discussion on that. Here you see that government support schemes have saved jobs, and they've sparked a saving boom, what I just said. And here you see that the higher income segments are likely to go and spend their money first, which seems to be a logical situation. Now, the first things, which is basically a trend, and I don't like the word trend that much because trends tend to be of temporary, have a temporary nature. But the trend that we did see before the COVID crisis was hitting is that the access versus ownership. That people like to spend money on travel a lot, and that travel that you can see here as well, the expectation that people will start spending money on travel before they start spending money on goods. So we expect also here that recovery will be coming first. And quite frankly, where I live in Amsterdam, I didn't used to hear in the last year a lot of airplanes going in and out of Schiphol Airport, and nowadays it seems to be quite back to normal again, and flights are departing a lot more than they used to. So it seems to be true, actually. Then 8 out of 10 international consumers tend to say that they will be booking and planning a domestic holiday, and that's just to underpin and underline that travel will bounce back very quickly. Key trends for the major stakeholders. Look, at the end of the day, COVID-19 accelerates the hybrid hospitality trend. Mixed use under one brand label with revenue per square meter as the new KPI seems to be a trend that's coming along. What we see happening is because of the people start working from home a little bit more. In the Netherlands, that number was about 14%. In the UK, it was anywhere between 3 and 5, same as in Germany. So the impact of working more from home will be felt more and will be creating a demand in the hospitality industry to use hotel lobbies more than we've ever used them. Look at hotels like Citizen M and the Ace Hotel. You all know the pictures with the laptops and the earphones and people working from distant locations. The office will become more like a clubhouse where you want to be to meet people, because a lot of work you can do from home as well. And that means that shorter trips, quicker trips, more blending in local communities, and those kind of hotel concepts will become more popular than the typical business hotels that we used to know. And so that will be, in our expectation, a merge basically from the typical business, sedate, introvert business hotels to more extrovert, community-enhancing hotel concepts. And that's what we see happening as a main trend